English translation 132nd contact Friday, 18th of July 1980, 11:03 HRs.
Perhaps, girl. Today we can manage to record the sounds of your ship here in Durston undisturbed, and capture them on tape.
1. The outlook for that is unlikely in this weather. 2. The farmers will now be in the fields in order to bring in their grass as hay. 3. Though we are quite secluded here, we still surely will not have the necessary peace and quiet also here again.
I know. It was quite lousy the last few weeks, and one could not have their peace and quiet or opportunity anywhere. If I could just record, at least once, a full half-hour of the sounds of your whirring ship, such that I catch it in full action. Just the half-whirring and half-action does not bring the effect and the analysis possibilities, such as when you can let your ship wail in full swing.
4. Sure, I understand that. 5. But at the same time, you also have to be aware that the sounds of my ship are so loud when in full action that they can be heard for miles. 6. Therefore today, we intend to carry out our tests here once again.
As you say, but people will probably show up here again? But this means that we will again get the whirring on audio cassette only with interruptions. Because if someone comes running up or approaches, then you will simply let your mill fall silent and disappear. So the whole work is very tiresome and laborious.
7. I must also be careful with regard to the monitoring of the air, because the Air Force of your country is carrying out active flyovers here.
I know, so it would probably be best if we would try it in the evening hours.
8. If we cannot carry out the desired work until 17 HRs today, then I will let it be done under any circumstances.
And what does that mean then?
9. You will put away your devices and go home. 10. There, you will then take some of the group members with you and go to Hintersedeleg to set up your recording apparatuses there. 11. The group members should then position themselves in front at the crossroads at the barn, and should let no stranger through when I release the sounds of my ship, and they resound through the countryside. 12. Inevitably, people will then come running or approach there from far away, because the sounds will be heard very far. 13. So it will then be the group member's job to keep these people away from you and me.
Is the noise so very loud in full action then?
14. You will see. 15. You will shake from the vibrations when the air bursts and rips.
Then I can, indeed, be prepared for a great deal.
16. Sure, but first we will now try to do our work at this place. 17. We do have a few hours of time. 18. With the filming and photographing, however, everything will be even more difficult. 19. We probably will not be able to do the film works until shortly after winter, whereas the photo works can still probably be started.
I nearly thought of something like that myself, in this overpopulated, stupid country. I will actually be glad if I can finally leave here again.
20. About that, I still wanted to speak with you.
Then we can do that right away.
21. You are still of the same opinion, which you even said. 22. That simplifies my speech for me.
Then fire away at last.
23. We have discussed everything and have come to the view that this time you evidently do not want to yield another time. 24. For this reason. Quetzal, just a few hours after our conversation on June 15th, so about a month ago, removed the small monitoring disc over the center, so therefore now no more recordings will be made. 25. This also means, however, that the meditative center is no longer under the neutralizing influence of this disc, which will surely already be ascertained rather soon by some group members. 26. So in the future, also no objects and so on can be cleansed there anymore, and all neutralization must now be created there in every respect by the group members themselves. 27. Since you have become tired of everything and no longer want to go back because the group members have failed in their full number, which corresponds to the truth, it would be unfair if we would continue to grant them our help. 28. If there is still to be a continuance and a fulfillment of the task now in spite of everything, then this can only happen by the fact that our help is taken away from every group member down to the last. Consequently, all individuals must strive with their own efforts if they want to achieve something. 29. The envisaged center of peace has, within only 1 to 2 years, developed into a center of unpeace, because neither was the teaching followed in good measure, nor was a study pursued in the right form. 30. So a peaceful and harmonious living together never came about, and neither did an achieving of the goal in terms of the development of consciousness and the abilities connected with this. 31. For this reason, along with many other things, we did a look into the future that was necessary for us and determined thereby that the center can only change into a center of peace and knowledge, harmony and spiritual teaching, if each group member changes him or herself to the better in the shortest time, or if all persons of the existing group leave the center for several years, work strictly, very strictly on themselves and change themselves totally, which means that, finally, a true study must be pursued, and also the mentality must be changed. 32. But it also means that your directives must finally be followed, observed, and respected. 33. But all this also means that not a single group member may continue to remain in the center if the departure must actually occur. 34. And it also means that all relevant group members would have to depart from Switzerland and into the immediate vicinity of your new place of residence and workplace, which you would have to find in the foreseeable future, in which case you should first and foremost take America into consideration. 35. But at the same time, it would then have to be ensured that at the new place, the group members would no longer live together in the present collective form like in the center, because at present they evidently are not capable of this yet. 36. If, on the other hand, even just one single group member would remain in the center, if a departure actually occurred, then this would mean that the old games would go on, and the unpeace would continue to gnaw further into the walls. 37. For these reasons, a total departure would have to take place without any exception, with which, as I already explained, at the new location, the individual families and individual group members would have to live at the same location, but separately in their own accommodations. 38. Only for the daily work tasks. Studies and the teaching could all group members then still come together in the community, in which case, however, hard learning and a determining change in mentality would have to be accomplished. 39. And only if everything necessary would be achieved could a return to the center be considered, which until then should be inhabited by non-group members and managed under your direction, because despite everything, the center should, indeed, be preserved if the fulfillment of the task is still to remain in force. 40. Through this action, the chaff would also have to be separated from the wheat definitively, because the only group members who would accept and carry out this only solution would be those who have enough reason, sense of duty, love, and will for truth in terms of the teaching and our common mission. 41. Also, only in fulfillment of the final solution will we maintain the contacts furthermore and put the monitoring disc back over the center at the given point in time. If all the group members have finally enabled themselves to fulfill all their tasks at the center. 42. At the new location, if you really have to move away, You yourself should only deal with the teaching and the fulfillment of the mission, and thus instruct and teach the group members. 43. The facts of ufology, as you call them, are from now on no longer your concern, not even at a possible new place. 44. Others should be responsible for that. 45. Do not let yourself get involved in any talks about these things anymore, except with those with whom you stand in relevant contracts. 46. Inform them, however, that the films for which they strive must be done by the end of the year 1982 at the latest, because you should then no longer be active in this respect. 47. The work of your mission and the fulfillment of duties will completely occupy you due to the new framework. 48. Those are the facts that I should mention to you for the time being.
That is already a great deal, and I think that this is the only solution. You really strove intensively for a clarification, even though you have said, nevertheless, that you would no longer interfere in our concerns.
49. Sure. 50. The solution is exceptionally well thought out, and we have even asked the High Council for its advice. 51. We do mix ourselves into your concerns, but as a result of the ulterior motive considered by both of us, which I may not disclose, however, as you do know.
And have the masters of the half-material world not blown their tops over the fact that you are still in contact with me?
52. We informed the High Council about our action at that time at our own risk. 53. Under the implementation of and compliance with the solution you mentioned, the High Council would even be willing to let its collaboration be newly insured, so therefore also you and the group members could profit from its advice-giving again.
That
54. Sure.
is but a surprise. Man, oh man.
55. Even the High Council is capable of relenting and recognizes a good will.
Human child, this is 1,000,000 times more than I ever expected. But now, the question is, what will the group members do, and will the necessary change come?
56. The chaff will now finally be separated from the wheat.
Yes, you said that already. Then we will just see.
57. So it will be.
And who all should temporarily emigrate then, if it should really come to that? And how should I manage the center from a distance?
58. For the first question. 59. It would be all group members who live in the center, and perhaps even some who do not have their permanent abode there. 60. For the managing from a distance, as you say, Quetzal has already been working out what is necessary, so you would not have to take care of it.
And who then should take over the building up and lead locally?
61. That will be the problem of the group members.
Well, and by when should the possible emigration be accomplished?
62. For you. It would be good if it shall come so far that it could still be before the end of this year, while the group members would have to leave the center later at reasonable and appropriate intervals. 63. But everyone should already strive to clarify their emigration possibilities and to arrange the necessary things.
That will cause little joy.
64. The aforementioned solution is still open as the only one if the necessary change of the group members is missing. 65. If the demand relating to this is not complied with and is not fulfilled, then everything so far was in vain, because then the emigration must actually be taken into consideration.
That is quite clear. But there are still always some who think that everything is not half as bad.
66. Then they are mistaken just as much as they have been mistaken up to now, thinking that this would never come true in such a way as it is coming true now.
I know. It is always thought and said in secret that I just dramatize everything. That everything is not half as bad, and that I only exaggerate everything to push the group members by fear and to keep them in line.
67. That is known to me. But now the end is near, and there is only a single hope and outlook. As you have very often explained, which we did not want to accept as true, and, concerning which, we had to let ourselves be put right by means of a look into the future. 68. We always thought that you saw various concerns darker than they were in truth, but we were mistaken in that. 69. Just as much and even more were we mistaken in the assessment of the Earth person and in their thinking and actions, which is why we carried out large-scale analytical clarifications and had to recognize that we must analyze the terrestrial humankind again in a new form, and more intensively if we are to fathom the true being of the person. 70. The form situated with us was inaccurate and inadequate, which is why we could find the necessary solution for the center and the group, as well as the fulfillment of the mission only by a look into the future. 71. Even our probability calculations failed, because they always and with every calculation yielded completely different results, as we also always carried out our calculations in accordance with a wide variety of facts. 72. The inconsistency in the individual group members and their confusion and lack of logic always yielded different calculation facts, which is why no logical result was to be obtained. 73. For this reason, for a clarification, there only remained for us the look into the future, which showed us two possibilities, so namely the one, that if even just one of the currently existing group members should continue to remain in the center after a certain time after your going away, then everything would be irretrievably destroyed without a hope of recovery. 74. Then, as the second possibility, which I have mentioned to you as a solution, the change of all group members. 75. The third possibility, which rests in an ulterior motive, I may not mention openly, namely the solution that is well known to you in accordance with our agreement.
And is this third solution, as you call it, for sure if it is carried out?
76. That it is, which is clear from the look into the future. 77. However, this solution is valid as a true solution with all the necessary success, only if fundamentally one acts in accordance with the teaching and your word is truly noted and followed.
There are, therefore, also two possibilities there?
78. Sure, because each thing has its negative and positive sides. 79. The solution known to you in accordance with our agreement, however, is irrefutable.
I know that. One could philosophize about it for hours and for weeks.
80. That is right, but no time remains for us for that. 81. We should now begin our work.
Good. I would then like to fill a small tape with the sounds also for Lee and Wendell.
82. As you wish. 83. But let us get to work now. 84. We will talk later about all that was discussed once more or even several times.
Okay.
Beamship Symphony.
Early in the morning of the 18th of July 1980, we could never have imagined the magnificent sonority we would hear that evening. Tired and exhausted as a result of an accident that had happened months earlier and after a day's work, I drove my car home. As we, my wife Mariah Barbara and I, still had a few urgent commissions to fulfill on the way, we arrived at our Horst in Hinterschmidruti at around 6:30 Aries. But as soon as we got out of the car, Billy stopped us in his own friendly way. "Do you fancy it?" he said to me, his eyes twinkling mischievously. He still needed a strong man, he said, and turned round to disappear straight back into his office, where he had some final preparations to make. As we Hinterschmidt-Ruteners had long been used to being constantly on the ball, it only took a fraction of a second before we realized that our Billy had something important to tackle in connection with his very difficult mission, and that a few more people could be very useful to him. We were still busy unpacking the boot when, shortly afterwards, Billy started walking towards us again. "In 10 minutes, this is it. We're doing ship takeoff." Now we knew what we had to do. Billy needed an extra road guard who was prepared not to let even a mouse through to the recording location. It was up to all of us to hermetically seal off all access and transit routes. After Billy had set his special tractor and trailer loaded with technical equipment in motion to head towards the recording destination at around 6:50 p. Mott's eye, still busy with our shopping in the car, called out once again for a good coffee. But my barbarian seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth, and my call obviously went unheard in the vastness of our high valley. So, slightly disgruntled, I unloaded our boot completely. It wasn't just me who was a bit grumpy at the time of Billy's departure. Jacobus had also become antsy after looking in vain for the road guard, whom he should have transported at the appointed time. Our people were still rushing around everywhere, each of them having to do this, that, and the other. Heavily laden with bags, sacks, and boxes, I finally reached our kitchen. No sign of my barbarian. I must have written the coffee before leaving in the fireplace. But at the very last moment, as if by magic, my lady was standing in the kitchen, handling the cup, coffee powder, hot water, cream, and sugar, and acting as if we had time to waste. So she had heard me after all when I shouted for the coffee, that stone fruit. As quickly as I could, I poured the hot, quick brew into myself, took my barbarian by the arm, and, dragging her out of the kitchen, we stumbled to the waiting rover under the reproachful gaze of a half-despairing Jacobus. Seconds later, Calliope arrived. Get in, rover door thrown into the lock, and off we went towards Sadeleg. A little late, we reached Billy, who was already waiting for us, and had in the meantime set up and aligned highly sensitive equipment about 250 meters from the actual recording location. After Billy had given us the final instructions on how to behave, he climbed back into his vehicle to drive to the actual recording and contact location. In the meantime, we positioned ourselves at all the strategically important points and waited for what was to come. We watched as Billy got out of his vehicle when he arrived at the actual recording location. He hurriedly began to work on the trailer, and shortly afterwards the tarpaulin flew back, which he locked into the frame of the trailer in such a way that a small canopy formed as protection against the rain that had just started to fall. Only a few minutes passed before a hurricane of air-shredding sound suddenly ripped through the hills and valleys in a veritable inferno. A flood of sound waves crashed into our ears, drumming mercilessly. We all stood spellbound at our guard posts, literally intoxicated by the intensity of the sound we had never heard or experienced before, which literally melted the inner workings of some of the sound recorders and put them out of action. We all surrendered to this unique soundscape, which could be heard for several kilometers. And it was not only the elderly couple who hurried along from a hamlet about 3 kilometers away and who refused to be stopped and turned away until a few harsh words had the desired effect, but also the various drivers who drove at snail's pace, with their windows rolled down, and listened to these strange cascades of sound. Some members of a farmer's family we know well also couldn't resist getting on the tractor and slurry tanker about 800 meters away to see what was actually going on in the background. Contrary to Simya Say's custom of using an energy screen to silence her ship when strangers appear, this time she gave free rein to the sometimes loudly screaming sounds. Too often we had to work with interruptions over and over again, and now Simyase's patience was also at an end. So not only we, but also all those who were curious and brave enough to open themselves up to the sounds of very high technology, were treated to an unusual and deeply impressive experience that lasted no less than around 30 minutes. Finally, for the uninitiated, I would like to briefly explain the percussive nature of the sound vibrations emitted by spacecraft and beam ships, which unfold freely especially for sound recordings. In normal air traffic on our planet, the ships are not only shielded from view in an energy field, as is probably already common knowledge, but no sound also penetrates to the outside. These energy shields can be opened selectively by the pilots of these ships. The sound is immediately able to escape. Highly satisfied with this experience of a Pleiades beam ship in operation, and deeply grateful to Billy and Simyase, we headed home at around 8.00 HRs in the now increasingly heavy rain. Engelbert Wächter, 20th July 1980, Hinterschmidt-Rüti.